There are a lot of ways of getting back in touch with that voice. One of the first things that needs to happen is to quiet all the other voices. And the only way to quiet those voices is to become aware that they're there. And when I was first getting sober, one of the things that was told to me early on was to question everything. And the person that said that to me, I'm sure that she didn't expect me to take it as literally as I did, because I did. I began questioning everything, every thought that came into my head, every concept, every belief, everything that came out of my mouth. I would pause for a moment and say, wait a minute, do I believe that? So I remember at one point, I don't know, I actually might not have even yet been sober. It may have been in the first 6 months that I was trying to get sober, and was beginning to practice some of these skills that I was learning. And one of them was, question everything. And so I was standing at the door, and I had, bagfuls of groceries and my purse on one arm, and had the keys, and I was trying to get the keys in the doorknob, and I dropped the keys. And I went, oh, you're such an asshole. And I paused for a moment, and I stood back, and I went, wow, would I say that to either of my kids? No. Am I an asshole? I dropped the keys. No, I'm not. Wow, I just dropped the keys. And so I paused, and I questioned that. And that was probably one of the most profound things I could have done in early sobriety, because I noticed that I had such a harsh critic within me. And I stopped, and I looked at it, and I said, whose voice was that anyway? So questioning everything, I just kept questioning. I'd go deeper and deeper. Am I an asshole? No, I'm not. I just dropped the keys. Would I say that to somebody else? No, of course not. Would I think that? No, of course not. Whose voice was that? And I could see that, wow, it's my father's voice. He'd been dead at that point for 17 years, and he was still operating in my life. And so just beginning to question some of those voices, to question things that I would say to my children. I'd say, no, you can't do that. And they'd say, why? And I'd give a reason. And they'd be like, that doesn't make any sense. And I would pause and question it and say, wow, where does that come from? Do I believe that? Is that my belief? No, it's not. And they're right, it doesn't make any sense. And just a lot began happening with that. So becoming aware of all of the things that were running in my mind was one of the... Hello, Miss Pumpkin. One of the things that that was so important for me was to become aware that there were things running in my mind, and becoming conscious of it. So I began questioning everything. I began meditating regularly on a daily basis. I had been meditating for years at that point, but just sporadically. And so when I got sober, I made a commitment to meditate every day for 6 months, and we'll see what happens. We'll see if anything changes. And I started noticing things right away. Well, first thing I noticed was that there was all kinds of noise going on in my head. There were all kinds of people up there talking all the time. And I had a notepad next to my seat, so that I could write some of these really important things down that I would think about later after I was done meditating. And I couldn't imagine stopping thinking, for 20 minutes. I couldn't imagine stopping thinking for 5 minutes at that point. And so becoming aware of all of the thoughts in my head, and writing things down, I started to notice how crazy that was. And that, gosh, if it's really important, I'll remember it. I'll think of it later. And so acknowledging when a thought would come in, I would just notice it. Instead of fighting with it, instead of trying not to think, I would just notice it. And I would actually even mentally make an acknowledgement of it, thinking. So I would say to myself, thinking, and then I would just bring my attention back to my breath. or counting my breaths, or whatever, whatever single pointed focus meditation I was doing. And another thought would come in, and I would notice it and say thinking, and come back to my single pointed focus, rather than getting on the train of thought. Because when I first started, what I would do is the train would come in, and it would look like a thought, and rather than just letting it pass on by, I'd hop on and have this entire conversation, and then we can, and completely, go to another state or another country on this train, and then come back to my meditation. So becoming aware of that and noticing it is the first step to things becoming still and getting quiet. And so those are two of the probably the biggest, most profound and productive things that I've done to create stillness in my head, and questioning everything, and then acknowledging the thought, but not going for a run with it.